good morning, or good afternoon, dear students. Today, we begin Chapter 5 of our Insert History textbook, Pastoralists in the Modern World. In this chapter, we will meet the nomadic communities who move with their herds. We will see how their lives changed under colonial rule and how they adapted to new pressures. Before we dive in, here is the map of our journey in this chapter. First, we look at pastoral nomads and their movements, how and why they move from place to place. Then we study how colonial rule affected their lives, the laws, restrictions, and new challenges they faced. Finally, we will compare with pastoralism in Africa, how colonialism altered their grazing lands, mobility, and survival. Nomads are people who don't stay in one place. They move around. Pastoral nomads move with their livestock in search of pasture and water. In the mountains, for example, communities like the Gujar Bakawals migrate seasonally. In winter, they move to lower altitudes. In summer, they go to alpine pastures, on plateaus, plains, and deserts. Pastoralists like the Dangars, Kurumas, and Raikas also migrate, timing their movement with sowing and harvest seasons, negotiating access to grazing with farmers, and trying to survive in changing landscapes. Colonial rule and pastoral life under colonial rule. The lives of pastoralists changed dramatically. The colonial state introduced wasteland rules, treating uncultivated lands as wastelands and assigning them to others. Then came the Forest Acts, which declared many forests as reserved or protected. Pastoralists lost customary access to grazing and were forced to obtain permits. The Criminal Tribes Act labeled some nomadic communities as criminal by birth, restricting their movement, introducing surveillance, and forcing them to settle. They also faced grazing taxes, paying for every animal they grazed. These measures squeezed their mobility and increased their vulnerability. Pastoralists did not just surrender, they adapted in many ways. They changed their migration routes and timings. Some reduced herd sizes, others combined pastoralism with agriculture or wage labor. They negotiated with local officials and farmers for grazing rights. Some even challenged laws. Through resistance and protests, these adaptations helped them survive, though often with difficulty. Pastoralism in Africa. Comparative case. To widen the lens, we turn to Africa, especially the Maasai herders. Under colonial rule, grazing lands were taken for white settlers, game reserves, or national parks. Borders were drawn, restricting movement and dividing traditional grazing routes. The Maasai lost fertile lands to colonial agriculture. They faced restrictions similar to Indian pastoralists, loss of mobility, access, and autonomy. Thus, the pressures on pastoral communities were global, shaped by colonial imperatives. What changed and what continued? Changes: stronger state control, classification of lands, surveillance, taxation, and legal restriction of movement. Continuities: pastoralists' deep dependence on pastures and mobility, their negotiating spirit, their ecological knowledge, the legacy. Many pastoral groups became marginalized, lost land, and struggled to sustain their livelihoods. Today, we see echoes of these issues in debates on land rights, mobility, indigenous rights, and resource access. Key terms to remember. Here are some important terms: nomads, pastoralists, wasteland rules, forest acts, criminal tribes act, grazing tax, adaptation, and mobility. Thanks for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed our journey. Don't forget to like and subscribe our channel for more videos.